Hello everyone and welcome to our presentation which will be focused on the 2002 Commonwealth Games Legacy Programme. This presentation will be delivered by myself, Abby, as well as Emma, Ruby and Niamh. So our task for this project is to interpret project requirements and point out appropriate legal frameworks that impact upon corporate social responsibility known as CSR and governance requirements. In this presentation, we will cover, firstly, the background to the Manchester 2002 Commonwealth Games and the subsequent Legacy Programme. We will then cover legacy frameworks, or legal frameworks, and the applicable legislative acts, such as Town and Country Planning 1990, Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004, and the UK Safety Management System developed by HSE. We will also cover governance frameworks and how they were implemented in the Legacy Programme. Lastly, we will discuss CSR and how the Legacy Programme supported and developed it. To provide some context to the presentation, we will need to know the background to the Commonwealth Games, which is an international multi-sport event with athletes competing from around the Commonwealth nations. In 1995, Manchester successfully won the bid to host the 2002 Commonwealth Games. This was a significant achievement for the city and the hosting area of East Manchester, as this was an area of great deprivation and in desperate need of regeneration after suffering deindustrialisation. Designs for the Commonwealth Stadium were carried out by Arup, and these designs were developed and construction began in January 2000 by Lang Construction. The resulting in the works costed around £110 million. During the Games, 72 countries and 3,679 athletes would compete in a variety of events from swimming to gymnastics. This occurred from the 25th of July to the 4th of August 2002. It's important to note that the Games would not have been possible if it wasn't for the 10,000 volunteers that were involved throughout the process. In hosting the Games, Manchester 2002 Limited was established with a broad and challenging remit, revealing that the Games has always been about more than just 10 days of sport. With that, the aims of the Games were developed. Firstly, they wanted to deliver an outstanding sporting spectacle of significance, celebrating athletic achievement, cultural diversity, and the unique atmosphere coined the Friendly Games. They also aimed to deliver the Games successfully on behalf of all competitors, stakeholders, and the spectators. They aimed to set a new benchmark for hosting international sporting events in the UK and to create long-lasting benefits. The aim we are more focused on, however, which became a programme of work in its own right, and is what this presentation is focused on, is to leave a lasting legacy on new sporting facilities and social, physical and economic regeneration. This progresses us on to the next element presented by Niamh to help us understand the Legacy Programme a little bit further.
Focusing on the Legacy Programme, the key motivation for Manchester hosting these Games was their ability to stimulate sustainable regeneration when it gave an opportunity to for securing lasting social and economic benefits for all the community, residents and volunteers of the project. The leader of the Manchester Council said that the Games were designed to be a driver and catalyst for a change in the host city. He also said that the reason the bid was successful was as a result of their commitment to the regeneration and improvement of work pre and post Games. The £17.71 million Legacy Programme aimed to improve the skills in education and personal development, as well as developing skills and improving cohesion through the participation, and to improve the competitiveness of SMEs. Now we've provided a background to the Commonwealth Legacy Programme, we need to understand how the applicable legal frameworks impacted corporate social responsibility and the governance requirements on this project. The Legacy Programme had various legal frameworks to comply with, but before we go into these, we're going to look at what legislation and legal frameworks mean. So legislation is a law or set of laws that have been passed by a parliament, and together these make up the legal framework. Legal frameworks then comprise of a set of documents that include constitution, policy, regulations and contracts. Moving from the bottom to the top of the pyramid or legal hierarchy, each instrument becomes more detailed and specific. Now we're going to move on to Emma, who's going to talk about the legal frameworks.
So now we're going to have a look at the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 and how this affected the Commonwealth Games Legacy Programme. So to start with, the term Act refers to an act of Parliament that either creates a new law or changes in some way an existing one. The Town and Country Planning Act 1947 formed the basis for much of the country planning system. This Act was then superseded by the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. This made several changes, principally dividing planning into forward planning and development control. The main requirements they require businesses to comply to are to use forward planning to meet agreements and obligations in order to secure planning permission. So to deep dive into this a little bit further, planning permission is a legal process that determines whether proposed developments should be permitted. And this will have applied to lots of aspects of the Commonwealth Games Legacy Programme, right from the venue construction of the stadium and the velodrome through to the regeneration of the Manchester City. The other requirement that they had to comply to as a business was to proactively manage development in the local area to achieve the local planning vision and deliver sustainable development. Sustainable development is defined by the United Nations General Assembly as the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the needs of the future. The Commonwealth Games Legacy Programme can firstly be seen to comply with this Act through the Commonwealth Stadium being built as a multi-purpose stadium. This meant that after the Games was over, other events were used the stadium, such as sporting events as football and also non-sporting events such as concerts. This also links to corporate social responsibility, as it shows how the organisation is going above and beyond laws to ensure their construction will impact wider community, which, without having to comply with this Act, they may not have excelled in. The Games were constructed on a brownfield site. 57% of brownfield sites in the UK already have planning permission. Therefore, this made the planning permission process much easier and enabled them to keep on schedule and achieve their tight deadline. Shortly after the Games were held, the Town and Country Planning Act became part of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004. Although the Commonwealth Games itself will not have had to comply with this new Act, the Commonwealth Games Legacy Programme will have been affected by this and affected the wider regeneration of Manchester. This Act incorporated the town and country planning with spatial development and also compulsory acquisition of land. A change that this new Act introduced was permitting local planning authorities to introduce local permitted development rights by way of local development orders. These local development orders are intended to help attract investment to the area and support existing businesses by giving certainty for development, reducing timescales and reducing costs associated with planning application. This change to the Act aided the development of the construction of commercial venues. For example, as part of the Commonwealth Games Legacy Programme, it aided the construction on what was the largest ASDA in the UK. Again, this links to how complying with legal acts has impact on corporate social responsibility by being able to efficiently improve the quality of life for the wider society by introducing the best facilities. Abby is now going to take us through the next regulations that the programme had to comply with.
So the next legal framework we are going to discuss is the UK Safety Management System produced by HSE. HSE, or the Health and Safety Executive, is an independent body which is responsible for developing health and safety policies within the UK. They have the formal management system or framework that can help an organisation to manage health and safety. And it is an organisation decision whether to use it or not. An example of this system is the 2018 Occupational Health and Safety Management System. In this instance, the Games and Legacy Programme adopted a safety management system with the following health and safety objectives. Firstly, the integration and coordination of health, safety and risk management teams. This was a significant and crucial objective they implemented. They also established and shared objectives and a solid partnership with stakeholders. They developed close working relationships with HSE and local authorities such as Manchester City Council. They also shared a common understanding of EU and UK legislative requirements, as well as developing general audit and venue-specific monitoring tools. Lastly, they delivered effective effective training on health and safety tailored to meet the needs of different operational groups. HSE guidelines for the 2002 Commonwealth Games were onboarded and implemented throughout the Legacy Programme. So how did the Games and Legacy Programme comply with health and safety regulations? Firstly, health and safety presentations were delivered to all key stakeholders. Secondly, health and safety manuals and procedures were produced and distributed. Thirdly, safety training and audits were carried out across venues and with appropriate staff members. The fourth thing to know is the key element that was the comprehensive health and safety plan and practice file, which documented audits and procedures to be carried forward for the use in the legacy programme and was used as a standardisation and lessons learned document. Due to the nature of the games and the legacy programme, the UK safety management system was an intelligent choice of legislation, providing personalised application of health and safety measures, and was a crucial part of the success of the legacy programme through the valued lessons learned applicable and the sustainability of said programme. Now Ruby will take us through the governance slides.
So what is governance? This definition of governance is according to APM, and governance comprises the framework of authority and accountability that defines and controls the outputs, outcomes and benefits from projects, programmes and portfolios. It is the mechanism whereby the investing organisations exert financial and technical control over the deployment of work and realisation of value. Put simply, it is the structure and processes for decision making and accountability within a project. So good governance is essential to improve the performance of your organisation. You can see 7 characteristics of good governance on the slide, and these include rule of law, transparency and inclusive, to name a few. Strategic vision and accountability are also included. The Commonwealth Games Legacy Programme has shown these 2 characteristics specifically through the following governance structures. The theory that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts is rarely more strongly tested than during any large-scale event. The Manchester 2002 Commonwealth Games is testament to this theory. The Games could not have been as successful as they were without the partnerships that were formed to create the best Commonwealth Games ever. This slide looks into the way in which the Games Legacy Programme was delivered and the structure that was used to implement it. There are 2 governance structures on the slide, the Legacy Programme governance structure on the left and the Commonwealth Games on the right. In Manchester's case, the links between the Legacy Programme and the Manchester 2002 Commonwealth Games were developed by the Chief Executive of the Commonwealth Games, by him sitting on the board of the Legacy Programme and therefore playing a role in steering the programme's key priorities and activities. However, questions were raised about where the Games Legacy Programme sat in the general structure of the overall delivery of the Commonwealth Games and the extent to which the Legacy Programme was simply bolted onto the activities of the Games. The 2002 Commonwealth Games and the Legacy Programme had interdependencies, however they both relied on these interdependencies to make their project and programme successful. There was a general recognition that once the Games had finished, the Legacy Programme began to experience difficulties maintaining momentum, enthusiasm and interest that was clearly evident in the run-up to the event. To ensure good governance resumed once the Games finished, a financial reward was given to the coordinator of the Legacy Programme to ensure stable management. The City Council also took responsibility for financial management and monitoring throughout the Legacy Programme. And also long-term goals and a post-event legacy strategy was created. We will now move on to look at corporate social responsibility.
So corporate social responsibility is where organisations take responsibility for the impact of their activities on the customers, employees, shareholders and communities and the environment that their operations work in. This goes beyond obeying laws locally and voluntarily acts to improve the quality of life for the wider society. Typically, organisations engage with CSR due to moral obligations, sustainability, licence to practice and for reputation.
Although we mentioned earlier how legal frameworks impacted on how the Commonwealth Games went above and beyond on CSR, they also did other things such as funding 7 individual project groups that together contain a total of 24 projects within them. We are going to focus more on the Prosperity Individual Project Group. This group ensured businesses in the area would benefit from the Commonwealth Games, forming alliances and providing opportunities for employment, skills uplift and sustainable trade links. And the success of this project group can be seen by the Commonwealth Games directly creating 6,300 jobs, and not forgetting they created indirect jobs from the supplier effect. A supplier effect is where individual elements of the supply chain affect each other. For example, greater tourism brings in greater revenue from retail areas. Furthermore, there was a £22 million turnover from local communities, boosting their economy due to an increase in visitors. And finally, through the Commonwealth Games Legacy Programme, there was an urban renewal, which has included housing upgrades and improved living conditions.
So to summarise, the legal frameworks of health and safety and planning affected the way the Games were undertaken. The regeneration of Manchester through the Commonwealth Games provided a grounding for the legacy programme, which in itself is an act of corporate responsibility for benefiting the wider society. The legacy then benefits the communities through the 7 individual projects, and this was all successful due to having a good governance structure over the project.
Thank you for listening to our presentation. Please find our list of references below. On reflection surrounding our ways of working, we all as a team had to communicate remotely, which is different and sometimes challenging. However, we are all fairly used to it now. We communicated really effectively with each other. We discussed and researched the assignment every day, and we all were involved in each aspect of the assignment. Once we set out a project plan on what we were planning to do, we worked really well and we were able to create a presentation we were happy and content with. Thank you.
Thank you.